There's a silence that follows after life wrecks you. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that screams in your bones. The kind that shows you just how quickly people can leave, how easily everything can vanish, and how no one's coming to save you. You look around, and nothing is like it was. It's not the people, not the mirror, not even your own heartbeat. And yet somehow, you're still here. Ruined, shaken, but not gone. And maybe that means something. Maybe what broke you wasn't the end. Maybe it was the door to a version of you that no one saw coming. Watch this video till the end. If this story finds your heart, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's rebuild you piece by piece. There's a moment after the collapse where everything just stops. No more voices, no more noise, just the wreckage. And you, standing in the middle of it, wondering how the hell it all came down so fast. You look around and realize everything you counted on is gone. The people you thought would stay, silent. The plans you built your life on, useless. The version of yourself you trusted, shattered. And in that hollow, breathless pause, something hits you that you weren't prepared for. No one's coming. No one's coming to explain it, to fix it, to save you. You're alone with the truth, and it burns. It burns because, for the first time, you can't lie to yourself anymore. You can't pretend it wasn't falling apart long before it broke. Can't keep hiding behind roles or smiles or what-ifs. That's what pain does. It corners you. It strips you down until only you remain, not the version you show the world. Not the mask you built to survive, but the raw, trembling truth underneath it all. It's brutal, because it shows you who you are when there's nothing left to lean on. And for most people, that version is terrifying, because you're not as put together as you thought. You're not as invincible, not as certain. You are scared, cracked, unprepared. It's the thing no one tells you, that version. One who's still breathing even after the collapse. That's the real you. It's the version who can't be taken from you, because she wasn't built on anyone else's approval. She wasn't created for the spotlight. She survived in the dark. The collapse didn't destroy you. It introduced you to yourself, not the idealized version, not the filtered one. The one who knows what it's like to fall and still stand up anyway. That's where the rebuilding begins. Not from some fake strength, but from honesty. From saying, this is who I am. I broke. I bled. But I'm still here. That's your foundation now. And it's unshakable because it's real. So don't run from the ruins. That silence you're feeling, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something terrifyingly true. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you were always meant to find. There was a time when your days felt full. Not meaningful, just full. Full of noise. Full of routine. Full of people who never really saw you. Plans that looked good from the outside but left you empty on the inside. You weren't happy, but you were comfortable. Comfort has a way of convincing you to stay where you are, even when it's quietly killing you. Then something happened. You lost something, or someone. Maybe the job fell apart, or the relationship cracked, or the world just stopped making sense. Suddenly, the noise was gone, and all you had left is you. That's when the silence started screaming. That's when the sleepless nights showed up, when your own thoughts felt like strangers, and the mirror felt like a place you avoided instead of trusted. You begged for relief, for distractions, for someone to show up and make it easier. No one came. And slowly, painfully, that's when the learning began. Not the kind of learning you find in books. Not advice from a friend or a quote on the internet. This was the kind of learning that cracked you open and forced you to look at every piece of yourself. You learned how much you relied on validation. You learned how easy it was to get lost in people, to hide behind busy schedules, to numb yourself with "I'm fine." But most of all, you learned that silence isn't empty, it's brutally honest. Pain showed you the conversations you were avoiding, the wounds you kept dressing up in laughter, the boundaries you never enforced. And underneath all of it, the version of you that was quietly drowning. Comfort never taught you that. Comfort gave you illusion. Pain gave you clarity. Now you sit with yourself in a way you never could before. You notice your thoughts. You question your choices. You stop waiting for permission to feel worthy. You rebuild, Not for applause, but because you finally believe you're worth saving. This didn't come easy. You crawled through moments where even breathing felt like a chore. You sat in your own darkness without knowing if light would ever return, but it did. Not all at once, but it did. You're different now, not colder, not harder, just real, more awake, more grounded, more fluent in the language of truth, the kind only pain can teach. And even though you'd never wish to go through it again, you know you'd never trade who you've become because of it, because now you finally see yourself. And for the first time, that's enough. There's a silence that follows when someone walks out of your life, not the kind that's peaceful. The kind that presses on your chest and makes you question everything. You wonder if you were too. Much or not enough. You replay conversations, rewrite moments, and torture yourself with what could have been. But what really hurts? It's not just the absence. It's what their absence says to you. That they could go on. While you were still bleeding, that they could walk away like you didn't matter. It's a gut punch, because they weren't just someone, they were the one you trusted. The one you believed would stay. The one who said, "I'm here," and made it feel real. But then they left. And for a while it felt like you were the one who failed. Like your love wasn't enough to anchor them. Like your presence wasn't enough to make them stay. You begged. For closure, you begged for a reason. You begged for them to come back and make it make sense. But they never did. And in that endless silence, something shifted. Not all at once, but slowly, like a light flickering back on after a storm, you realized you were standing on foundations that were never stable. You were investing in people who loved convenience more than commitment. You were giving pieces of yourself to people who never planned to hold them with care. And maybe their exit wasn't a punishment. Maybe it was exposure, because now you see it clearly. You see where you lowered your standards to feel seen. You see how much of yourself you shrank to keep, the peace. You see how badly you wanted to be chosen that you stopped choosing yourself. They didn't break you, they just broke the illusion. And in that wreckage, something stronger started to grow. You began to listen to your own voice again. Began to rebuild your boundaries, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. You stopped chasing presents and started choosing peace. You're different now, wiser, sharper, calmer. Not because they loved you well, but because they didn't. Their absence taught you something their presence never could. And maybe that's the most painful kind of gift. But it's also the most honest. Now you love slower. You trust with awareness. Most of all, you never beg to be kept, because you finally understand. The ones who leave don't define you. But they do reveal what you'll never allow again. There's a moment when you realize you've got nothing left. No plan. No safety net. No one checking in. Just you, sitting in the dark, staring at the broken pieces of a life that used to make sense. And it hits you. This is it. This is the bottom. You didn't think it would come to this. You always believed that somehow, some way, you'd bounce back before it got this bad. But now, there's no more pretending. There's no more distractions. No more illusions of control. Everything you thought would catch you, didn't? The people you trusted? Gone. The version of yourself you were trying to protect? Shattered. And for a second, maybe longer, it feels like you'll never breathe right again. But stay there for a moment. Don't run from it. Because there's something happening beneath the panic, beneath the grief, beneath the silence. Small, but it's real. A flicker, and it's yours. It doesn't look like confidence. It doesn't sound like hope. It's quieter than that. It's the realization that no one's coming to save you. And somehow, that truth doesn't break you. It wakes you up. Because now, there's nothing left to lose. And when you've got nothing to protect, you stop performing. You stop waiting for permission. You stop chasing validation. This is where the fire begins. Not the fire that comes from being celebrated or supported, but the fire that comes from being abandoned, exposed, and still alive. You start moving, not because you're inspired, but because staying still hurts more. You start thinking clearer, not because life got easier, but because you've got no more space for lies. You start rebuilding, not because someone gave you a reason, but because you finally gave one to yourself. Strive. It's not pretty, it's not poetic, it's survival, but it's sacred. Because the version of you that's born from rock bottom doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a map. It doesn't care what anyone thinks. That version, it's forged in hunger, in rejection, in nights where you screamed into pillows and got up anyway. You didn't just learn to fight, you became the fight. So if you're in that place now, if you're staring at the ground and wondering how to rise, know this. The floor is not your grave. It's your ignition point. And the fire that starts here, no one can fake it. No one can replicate it. And once it's lit, no one can stop you. There comes a point where you realize no one's going to hand you the life you thought you deserved. It's not because you aren't worthy of it, but because the world doesn't work. That way, it doesn't care how much you hoped. It doesn't care how much you planned. It doesn't pause just because you're overwhelmed. You expected someone to notice you were drowning. You expected something, anything, to break your fall. But instead, you hit the ground. Hard. And no one blinked. That's when it starts to settle in. This world won't hand you power. It won't protect your heart just because it's been broken too many times. It won't shelter you just because your intentions were pure. And that realization? Ow! It stings. Because deep down, you wanted it to be fair. You wanted your pain to mean something. You wanted all your silent suffering to add up to a breakthrough. But it didn't. And now, you're in the dark. No map, no guide, no voice telling you what comes next. All you've got is you. And that's where something shifts. Because when you stop expecting rescue, you start reaching deeper. Not for answers, but for grit, that buried instinct inside you that says, move, crawl if you have to, but move. You start building power from the ugliest places, from the days you showed up when you had nothing left, from the nights you sat in silence and didn't break, from the moments no one will ever see but you lived through anyway. There is no blueprint for that. No step-by-step for surviving when your soul is torn open and bleeding. You don't follow a plan, you become the plan. Through force, through rage, through steady, silent persistence. That's the price. The world doesn't reward you because you want it. It doesn't give you peace because you asked for it nicely. It watches, it waits. And only when you bleed for it, when you drag yourself through every lie, for betrayal, every disappointment, then it starts to shift. Not because it's kind, because you've proven you won't fold. You don't gain power by being soft-spoken in a world built to silence you. You gain it by surviving what was meant to break you and still standing up uninvited. It's uncelebrated, unrelenting. And once you do, you become someone no one can replicate. Because your strength wasn't given, it was earned in blood, in silence. In moments you never want to relive, but never regret, because they made you. And now, nothing can unmake you. You don't. Become untouchable by adding layers. You become untouchable by shedding them, the soft ones, the scared ones, the ones that made excuses for why life kept burning you. And that version of you, the one who tolerated too much, who stayed silent to keep the peace, who begged for love that never came, they have to go, not later. It's not gradually now. Here's the truth no one tells you. The old you was never built to survive the war you're walking into. They were built to survive a smaller life, a life of waiting, hoping, explaining. But you've crossed that invisible line, the one between who you were and who you have to become now. And that change, it's not poetic, it's violent. Not in fists or flames, but in the silence of letting go. Letting go of the people you tried so hard to impress. Letting go of the stories you kept repeating just to feel something. Letting go of the version of you that thought being kind meant being walked on. You will grieve them. You make no mistake about that. There will be moments when you miss their softness, their hope. You'll feel like a traitor to your past, like you're leaving behind something sacred. But you're not. You're burying something broken. You're burying the version of you that needed validation to feel seen. The one who dimmed their own fire because they didn't want to make others uncomfortable. The one who lowered their standards because loneliness started to feel like home. And yes, It will feel like a kind of death, quiet, invisible death that no one else will grieve but you. Because no one else really knew what you were carrying. No one else saw the nights you begged life to throw you something, anything, just to feel like you mattered. But now, you're not asking, you're becoming. You're not looking for permission, you're rewriting the rules, and that makes you dangerous in the best way. Because the moment you let the old you die, you stop bleeding for people who never knew how to stop the wound. You stop showing up with your hands open and your voice small. You start walking into rooms without needing to be liked. Because now you own who you are. That's what becoming untouchable really means. Not that pain doesn't reach you, but that nothing owns you anymore. Not your past, not their opinions, not your old limits. You're not healing to return to who you were. You're transforming to become someone no one's ever seen before. Someone who knows exactly who they are, because they burned who they used to be to find out. There was a time you didn't think you'd make it out, not because you didn't want to, but because everything inside you felt like it was already gone. The silence around you wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like a graveyard of everything you used to be. No one saw it. No one could see it. You still got up. You still smiled. You still said, "I'm fine." But deep down, something was cracking. The kind of cracking that doesn't make noise. The kind that eats through your spirit. Slow, silent, steady. You kept waking up, but it didn't feel like waking up. It felt like being dragged, day after day, through the same kind of empty. And maybe the worst part was, you didn't even recognize yourself anymore. The light in your eyes, gone. The fire in your chest, cold. You were breathing, but it didn't feel like living. Still, you didn't stop. Maybe because you couldn't. Maybe because something in you, some whispered a faint to name, told you that this wasn't the end. You thought the darkness was going to destroy you. But what no one tells you is that the pain doesn't always leave you with nothing. Sometimes it leaves you with clarity. It strips everything away, all the pretending, the noise, until all that's left is something real. You. Not the version people expect. Not the soft one. Not the one who breaks just because life doesn't play fair. But the version of you that came out of the fire with nothing to prove and everything to protect. You didn't choose to be strong. Life cornered you, pushed you to the edge. At somewhere in that corner where no one came to save you, you decided to stop waiting for the light. Become the storm. You stopped needing people to understand you, because you understood yourself. You stopped needing to explain your scars, because you knew the war you survived. And here's the part that might surprise you. You're still standing. Not healed, not perfect, but different. And that difference is what makes you dangerous now. Not in the loud, reckless way, but in the quiet, calm, unshakable way, the kind of dangerous that doesn't flinch, because it's seen worse. You don't crumble at the first sign of struggle anymore. You don't beg for mercy. You face it. You don't fear the darkness. You remember it. And that memory is your armor. This isn't the part where you say, "I made it." This is the part where you realize you became it. You became the one who doesn't break the same way. Twice. And no one can take that from you. Not the past, not the pain, not even the darkness. Because the darkness didn't end you, it built you. You've been quiet lately, not because you're lost, but because you're finally found. There's a difference. The world taught you to be loud when you're winning, to post proof for every step you take, to prove you're working, to prove you're healing. But somewhere along the way you realized validation costs too much. Every time you showed your progress, you gave someone a chance to aim at it. And the truth is, not everyone claps when you grow. Some people smile with their teeth and curse you with their eyes. Some nod at your progress while waiting for your fall. And when you expose too much of your becoming, you give them something to break before it's strong enough to survive. So now, you move differently, quietly, privately. And that silence, it's not weakness, it's war strategy. Because you've learned that not all progress is meant to be paraded. Some of the most powerful transformations happen in the dark, where no one's watching, where no one's interfering, where the only voice that matters is your own. You stopped sharing the early drafts of your healing. You stopped announcing the battles before they were over, not because you're afraid, but because you're protecting what's sacred. You're not hiding your growth, you're safeguarding it. And now, the very people who thought you gave up are about to be blindsided. They don't know what you've been building while they were laughing. They don't see the strength you carved out in silence. They think your stillness means you've disappeared. They have no idea you've only just arrived. The best part? They won't see you coming, because you stopped needing an audience to make your moves feel real. You stopped craving reactions to validate your journey. You realize that healing doesn't have to be loud. Success doesn't need a cheerleader. Comebacks don't need to be announced. What's invisible cannot be destroyed. What's protected in silence cannot be touched. And what you've become, it was never for them anyway. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them fill in the blanks with their own fears, because by the time they figure out what you've done, it'll be too late to stop it. This version of you doesn't seek permission. It doesn't broadcast pain. It doesn't leak progress. It arrives fully formed, unapologetically, unshakable, untouchable, because when you build in silence, you become the storm they never saw coming. In silence, that was never your weakness. It was your weapon. You keep telling yourself this is about them, the ones who left. The ones who doubted every step you took, every inch of you that tried to grow. But it's not. You want to believe your fire came from their silence, their rejection, their betrayal. But deep down, you know that's not the truth. Because even before they broke you, there's already a part of you that was suffocating. A part of you that never got to live, never got to try, never got to take a real breath without fear of being too much or not enough. This isn't about revenge. It never really was. This is about you, the version of you that never got a voice in the life you were forced to survive. The kid who used to dream without knowing how heavy the world could get. The teenager who tried to speak up only to be shut down before the sentence ever left their throat. The young adult who bent and twisted and buried their instincts to fit into a place that never once felt like home. You're not rising for applause. You're rising because you're tired of living inside someone else's limits. You're tired of carrying pain like it's some kind of proof you existed. You don't owe anyone a performance. What you owe is breath. To the parts of you that drowned in silence, to the moments you swallowed your truth just to keep peace that never served you. Your comeback isn't some movie scene where they all watch in shock as you win. There is no crowd. There is no cheer. There's just you waking up at 3 a.m. in a room no one else sees. Rebuilding piece by piece the life you were never allowed to imagine. You're not coming back to impress the world. You're coming back to finally be whole. To let the forgotten pieces of you take up space. To let the buried parts of you speak without shaking. To let her, the quiet one, the scared one, the one who almost gave up, live. She deserved better. She still does. And maybe no one will. Ever understand what this victory means to you? That's the point. This time it's not for them. It's not because of them. It's in spite of them. This comeback, this slow, painful, beautiful resurrection, it's for the girl who couldn't breathe, for the boy who kept it all in, for the you who waited in the shadows, hoping life would finally see you. Well, now it's your turn. And this time, you're not asking for permission. They thought they ended you, didn't they? When they walked away, laughed behind your back, called you too much or not enough, when they betrayed you, dismissed you, underestimated you, they thought they were burying something fragile, something they could return to later if they ever needed to feel powerful again. What they didn't know is they didn't bury you. They buried a version of you that never belonged to you in the first place. That version, the one that bent over backwards to please, to be accepted, to be tolerated, that wasn't you. That was survival. That was fear, dressed up as kindness. That was silence, mistaken for grace. You apologized for existing. You explained every move over and over, hoping someone would just say, "Yeah, that's okay. You're allowed." You waited for permission that never came. When it didn't, you still tried harder. But let's be real for a second. That version was never going to survive. Because it was never you. It was a shell you learned to wear so you wouldn't be abandoned. Yes. So when they left, or mocked you, or tried to drag your name through the dirt, they weren't breaking you. They were smashing the mask. And yeah, it hurt. Of course it did. Because even a cage can start to feel like home when you've lived in it long enough. Even a role can feel like your identity if you've played it since childhood. But now you don't owe anyone softness just to be accepted. You don't shrink to make room for people who don't have the capacity to hold your fullness. You don't beg, you don't chase, and you damn sure don't explain. There's a version of you now that walks without noise but carries storms in silence. You move with calm that unsettles the people who once tried to control you. You look at life without flinching, without twisting yourself into something more palatable. This version of you, the real one, doesn't care for approval, doesn't seek applause. You exist, fully, unapologetically. And the best part? They can't reach this version. Not because you're hiding, but because you're untouchable now. They were only ever able to break what was never yours to carry. But this version chooses itself every single time. So no one can steal you, because you're not playing their game anymore. And when you stop playing by their rules, you become something they'll never be able to control, contain, or destroy. Not now. Not ever.